Like the title of the video says, we're going to be covering Hydroid today, and we're going to be covering his Tidal Surge ability. So what is Tidal Surge, and what does it do, and why does it do it, and how does it do it? So Tidal Surge is basically his mobility skill. You will travel a certain distance, you will pass over allies, and that will only matter for the augment, but you also pass over enemies, picking them up and throwing them afterwards. So you're going to have a couple basic stats about this. You're going to have your drain amount, which is affected by efficiency, and you're also going to have your damage amount. Now, the damage amount does damage when you pick them up and when you stop. However, the damage amount is so low, it can't proc statuses. It is not worth mentioning here, really. I'm covering it for completeness. So we're not actually going to be covering strength for this skill. It should not be modified for strength. Try to mod for either duration or range. So getting into both of those, we're actually going to cover range first. So range is 6 meters by default. Here you can see I have it at 2.4, and then we also have speed of 30. So one would normally think that the range is the actual either distance or some sort of metric for how far this wave will go. This is not true for this skill, not true at all. What it does affect is it actually affects the distance that enemies are thrown and the pickup radius that you will pick enemies up in. So if you pass by and you have very, very little range, you actually might not even pick up an enemy. If you have a very low amount of range, you also might not throw them very far. The higher your range, the more likely you are to pick up a nearby enemy, and the further you will throw them when you are done. Speed is actually going to affect how quickly you move across the ground while you're in wave form. So in general, I believe the wave lasts, from what I can tell, the same duration no matter what. It is always going to last X duration, which is, I'm guessing, about 2 seconds, a second and a half. And when you do that, you will just travel much faster. So let's go ahead and jump in and see a little bit of testing. So I'm going to remove everything, so we're going to set at 100% here. And I'm going to put my back up against the wall, and we're going to travel. Now when we travel, you're going to see that we come to about this line right here. That's how far we get by default. What I'm going to do now, just to kind of prove out the way range works, is I'm going to throw on a bunch of range. So let's go ahead and throw on some normal range, some that doesn't have pluses and minuses, and we're going to throw on an additional 75%, come back down here and do it again. So you're going to see that we actually travel to basically the same exact place. Range does not scale the travel portion of the skill, as weird as it sounds. Like, I get that, guys, it's weird. But if we come into duration, you will see that we get quite a bit of movement out of it. So we're throwing on just prime continuity. Let's come back down, put our back to the wall, and see how far we travel. Let me try to look for a gap here. So yeah, we travel much further than we did getting to here. So duration is going to be the travel stat for this skill, how far you can travel. Just keep in mind when you throw on a bunch of duration, it's going to get really unwieldy, and I'll kind of show you that right now. So let's go ahead and throw on some more duration. Narrow-minded is good. Constitution is good. I think that's about what we want. And we're going to see that if I use it with my back up against the wall right here, I actually fly all the way off the dock just about. Maybe even, yep, completely off the dock. So seeing that duration is really strong for making this skill movement related, it is going to be faster than bullet jumping. The only problem with it is you have no control. Once you press the button, if I turn and I look another way, I don't start traveling that way. I continue going to wherever I was aimed. So think of this as a set it and forget it skill. If you hit it, it plots your trajectory immediately and you go there. You cannot control it after the fact. So interestingly as well, if you lower your duration by quite a bit, you will travel hardly at all. So going in here, let's throw on transient fortitude and fleeting expertise. So in doing that, we can come out and we're going to see that our travel distance is, well, not good. So let's go ahead and get into the range portion of this skill, and I'm going to go ahead and leave these mods on for an interesting little aside. Coming over here and coming to the enemy bombards, we can see that normally we would pick these enemies up and throw them. With this configuration of mods, It doesn't. Now you see them actually move. They are getting hit by the outside, or the secondary hit. So this thing actually does damage on the initial hit, and then once it ends, right? So they're not actually seemingly getting hit by the initial hit, just the ending portion, which means they don't get picked up. So there's some event that occurs on the initial portion that picks them up, and if they get hit by that damage, they get picked up. If the duration is too low for whatever reason, they won't ever have that initial hit and they won't get picked up. Now, the kind of sweet spot that I found is actually transient fortitude. Fleeting expertise is always going to be too much. You'll never pick them up with that skill. However, if you have the transient fortitude mod, you will actually be able to pick them up and reduce the total distance traveled. So let's go ahead and come in here and do it again, and you're going to see that we pick these enemies up and throw them. Now, we don't throw them very far, and that's fine. That's going to be a function of range. So let's go ahead and reset their positions. And then we're going to start throwing on some range modifiers. So range, what do we want out of range? So first of all, do we want to lower our strength? Well, we don't really care about strength on this skill at least. Strength doesn't really do anything because our damage component is so low, and there's no sort of special scaling that it has, much like efficiency. This is a somewhat cheap skill. We don't really need to invest into efficiency for it. It's really more about mobility in the end. So let's go ahead and throw on overextended, and we can get quite a bit of range here. Now, when we come over here and we hit these enemies with it, we're going to see that they get picked up quite nicely. Like the actual pickup radius of the wave is bigger, and also our I'm trying to make sure I don't fly off the map, and their throw distance is much larger as well. So if you want to throw enemies and ragdoll them, you want range. If you want to travel faster or further distances, you want duration. Coming into the final aspect of the skill is actually going to be its augment, which it actually is an okay augment. It's called Tidal Impunity. This skill is pretty decent for shield frames. You will clear all current status effects and become immune to them for 12 seconds. Now, if you pass through an ally, it will actually grant them those effects as well. Now, how often does that occur? Not very often, unless you're really trying to like play supporty, which I guess Hydroid can do. He can definitely do that. So when I travel, you're gonna notice a couple nice things about the way that this augment works, and that is Tidal Impunity immediately takes effect. So you will immediately be cleansed of statuses and become immune to them when you use the skill, not necessarily when it ends. Additionally, notice even though I have some time left, I can refresh the duration. Not all skills work like that, so it's really nice with this. It's sort of a very easy to use skill. It does scale with duration as well. Just keep in mind, if you have duration on your build, let me go ahead and find some duration. If you have a bunch of duration on your build, it will jump up quite a bit. So you'll see that my Tidal Impunity in the top right jumps to almost 24 seconds. You will have to travel further. You will have a less controlled wave, so if you don't necessarily want to be flinging yourself all the way across the map every 24 seconds, keep in mind you may not want to take Tidal Impunity. So there is one final aspect that we're not going to be covering, and that is the fact that within your undertow form, you can still travel in it. You can use this ability to move. Now, as to the exact way that it works and the calculations and all that, I'm actually going to leave that for the undertow video. Hydroid's a really great frame because his abilities all sort of interact with each other, but I do want to leave that for the undertow section because there's a lot of weird ways that undertow has scaling for stats. So I think that's going to do it for this video. But like always, guys, if I've missed something or misrepresented anything, please let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.